Good evening and a very warm welcome. You're watching the India Today Group ORG opinion poll for Gujarat. This is the most definitive opinion poll for the state where hectic electioneering is currently on. Before I get to the methodology of this poll and begin sharing with you the results, I want to introduce all our guests, beginning with India Today magazine editorial director M.J. Akbar. GVL Narasimha Rao is a renowned cephalogist. He's representing the BJP on this show. With us also is Headlines Today's own cephalogist, Professor Sanjay Kumar. We've also got veteran journalist Ashok Malik. Joining us also on this show is Achut Yagnik, a leading political analyst from Ahmedabad. We've got Ami Yagnik, spokesperson of the Gujarat Congress. I want to begin this discussion by getting MJ Akbar to set up the context in which this poll has been conducted by the India Today Group along with ORG. What are the broad parameters that you're really focusing on?
So let's take the actuals. The first requirement of a journalist is to satisfy curiosity. And I think the amount of curiosity that exists around Narendra Modi's future is gradually coming to a crescendo or a peak. There was also a very strong feeling, undercurrent, that this time around the Congress might actually sneak up on Narendra Modi and hit him as a kind of surprising uppercut that would certainly unbalance him.
Okay.
I don't know if it would defeat him or not. And so it is very interesting and important for us to get a sounding through professionals, objective professionals, people whose credibility in the polling business can't be doubted, and we let them do their job. Nobody, of course, would suggest to interfere, and this is what they found, and this is, we believe, given the evidence of the public reaction to Modi's campaign vis-a-vis the Congress campaign, this is probably be as accurate as polls ever get.
Okay. So this opinion poll has been conducted between the 12th and the 18th of October by ORG for the India Today Group. It's got a sample size of about 5,040. Let's take up one by one some of the questions that have been posed by the pollsters to the panel. And I want to start with one of the key features of Narendra Modi's build-up to this election, which is the Sadbhavna mission. We asked people whether Narendra Modi's Sadbhavna mission would change the perception that Modi has amongst the Muslims. Let's take a look at the responses. 41% feel that the Sadbhavna mission launched by Modi will help him get minority votes. 40% say no, 19% can't say. That's the first question that's been taken up by the India Today ORG opinion poll. The next question about the riots and whether people believe that Narendra Modi was responsible for the Gujarat riots. This is to the entire sample of about 5,000 odd people. 58% say no, 28% say yes, can't say is about 14%. So it's very interesting how the riots have been pushed into a corner and aren't really one of the key defining features of this particular election, which is being fought primarily on the card of development. Yes, Mr.
Is it time for it to interrupt?
Yes.
But I don't think this is totally accurate, as will be evident from other factors, because the only strong segment in which Modi is losing is among the Muslims.
Correct.
Although the amount of support he's got from Muslims is actually higher than I expected, about 35–40% and so on. But still, that is the only segment in which Modi is clearly behind.
Okay, so let's just take up the question that we've put out so far. We'll bring in GVL Narasimha Rao. He campaigned extensively, had this Sadbhavna mission going. That doesn't seem to have changed much on the ground. Muslims still view him with as much suspicion now as they did earlier. That barrier hasn't broken, GVL.
That is not entirely true. I think that's not really borne out by the numbers that you have put out so far.
Don't reveal numbers we haven't put out yet, just on the questions we put out.
Sadbhavana mission, you see, if 40% of the people are saying that it may not help Narendra Modi gets votes of minority, you see, you cannot seek votes of any community or caste or any electorate in any state based on any one single act. Narendra Modi has been the Chief Minister of Gujarat for the past 11 years. And I think he has set a new trend in politics. Until he came on the horizon, the common notion among the politicians was development does not help win elections.
Okay.
There was a skeptical view of how development is a complete non-issue as far as winning elections is concerned. He has turned that on its head, and today he's repeatedly winning elections, and I certainly hope that your numbers also will bear that out. And he is winning elections purely on account of his performance as a chief minister.
Okay, but as far as the Muslim community itself is concerned, and I want to go across to Achyut Yagnik in Ahmedabad, it's very clear, Mr. Yagnik, that the Muslim community has made up its mind, 55% saying that Modi has not been fair to their community in the last 5 years, and 59% saying he hasn't done much to help them, and no, even if he apologizes for what happened during the Gujarat riots, they still won't vote for him. So that is a barrier Narendra Modi hasn't been able to break, Mr. Yagnik.
Yes, I agree. What happened actually that only mercantile Muslim community supported him during Sadbhavana, like the Bohras and the Aga Khanis. Otherwise, other Muslim communities, and there are 87 Muslim communities in Gujarat, they never supported him. We should also remember that now whether Ahmedabad or Baroda or Surat are all divided cities, you know. In Ahmedabad, you find Juhapura, one of the biggest ghetto in India. And there you find what kind of feeling people have about present government. So I fully agree with this, that most of them, they are not going to vote for him, and they are not happy with him. And also, we should remember that Muslims are still treated as second-class citizens. As far as they accept that second-class citizenship, they are okay. That is the sentiment and situation in present Gujarat.
Ashok Malik, why this question is crucial is because it will also shape perceptions amongst the Muslim community across the country. If the Gujarat poll were to be a springboard for his national ambitions, very clearly the India Today Group ORG poll indicates that Muslims remain as apprehensive or skeptical or suspicious about Modi as they were earlier.
Well, Mr. Modi certainly has a problem with the Muslim voter. But I would argue from the numbers you have put out that the problem in Gujarat at least is actually smaller than it was 5 years ago. Because while 1 in 6, 17% of Muslim voters say they will vote for him, and about 83% say they won't. When it comes to the question, do you think Modi has been fair to your community in the past 5 years? 1 in 4 Muslim voters says yes. That doesn't translate into votes, not at all. I'm not suggesting it does. There is a barrier which he has to bridge. But there is a grudging recognition perhaps that he has been a reasonably fair governor or chief minister in the past 5 years. Okay. And I don't think we can sort of discount that fact.
Mr. Akbar has a point he wants to make.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, actually, these figures should really be compared to the Muslim intentions in the last 2 elections.
Sure.
And if you see that, then you'll find it slow, not very dramatic. After all, if say 58% are hostile to him, well, you know, 2 elections ago, 100% were hostile. So there has been some, and I think his message that justice for all, appeasement for none, is beginning to trickle down somewhere.
No, because what the Congress is hoping for, Mr. Akbar, is that there would be a reverse consolidation in favor of the Congress if Modi were to be projected on the back of the numbers that we've seen. Do you see that happen?
That is where I think the Congress hope is a bit belied, because slightly, but the graph shows that however incrementally, however small, the Muslim support for him is rising just a little bit on grounds of governance. If you remember, I mean, let's take a parallel example. In the 1980s, which Sikh would vote for the Congress? After 1984, Bruce Starr and so on.
Okay.
But after the 90s, by the end of the 90s, after 12-15 years, the Sikhs changed.
Let me put that question to Ami Yagnik from the Congress party. You're saying it's similar to what happened with the Sikhs in the 80s. They avowed never to vote for the Congress, but they changed over the next 10-15 years. Mrs. Yagnik, do you see the same happen with Modi in comparison with the last polls, numbers amongst the Muslim community for Narendra Modi better than they were earlier?
I don't think so, because very a small percentage seem to have joined the bandwagon of Sadbhavna mission. That is what the data reveals. But a majority of the people who have been on the side and they have been practically pushed to some kind of peripheral blocks or areas do suffer from several deprivations of basic amenities, and so there is a feeling that there is some kind of a disjunct between a different kind of people and them in giving out certain proper governance and administration kind of I wouldn't say favors, but kind of the governance that is found in that particular areas definitely shows that the Muslims do not have that kind of a leaning which the studies show.
Let's take a look at some of the other questions that we posed to the people who were surveyed. We began by asking them about their view of Narendra Modi. Let's take some of those questions. You know, would people vote for Modi if he apologized for the Gujarat riots? This is specifically amongst the Muslim community. 55% said no. 17% said yes. Can't say is about 28%. You know, this question is important, Mr. Akbar, because a lot of people are saying amongst the secular liberals that if Modi were to apologize, you know, it would help get some of the liberal secular Hindu vote and might help in calming tempers amongst the Muslim community. How important do you think is the issue of an apology?
I think it is fairly important to Muslims. It may not be equally important to Modi himself, because I think what Narendra Modi sees, that if he apologizes, then he also accepts guilt. And that is what he can't reconcile himself to, that he does not believe that he is guilty. Collectively, as a government, of course the government failed, but I'm talking from how he sees the issue. However, in political terms, again, one of the important points of the Sikh turnaround was that later on, the many Congress leaders did apologize for whatever happened, both in Blue Star.
The Prime Minister apologized.
Both in Blue Star as well. The Prime Minister apologized much later, of course. But in Blue Star as well as in the riots. I mean, don't forget the Sikh riots in Delhi, which I covered. I mean, God forbid me. I mean, God save me from seeing something like that again. So this really, and the Gujarat riots were equally bad. But this really is the issue. We see whether the turn is again. Now let's take yes and no. The fact that 17% would accept an apology and 28% are not so sure, that means they can't say, means that at least Modi's acceptability is not as stark, you know, it's not as black and white as it was previously.
How crucial is an apology? I want to bring Achyut Yagnik in, because there's a strong sense that Modi must say sorry for what happened in Gujarat. If he says sorry, accepts that this was a failure of him being able to uphold his Raj Dharam, it would make a difference. Mr. Yagnik, do you think it would make a difference if Narendra Modi says, I'm sorry for what happened?
I don't think it won't make any difference. And people are talking this culling effect. But as far as I know, his personality would not allow him even to say sorry or apologize for 2002. And all said and done, let me tell you that Muslim votes in Gujarat are not more than 9%. So beyond a point, he may not even worry about that 9% vote.
How important is an apology, especially in the pan-India context in which this election is being viewed? Would it make a difference?
MJ certainly has a point when he says...
I think all India...
I'm coming back to you, Mr. Yagnik. Let Ashok speak first.
MJ certainly has a point when he says that if Modi apologizes, it will be seen as admission of guilt. So perhaps a statement of reconciliation and an overall acceptance that he was Chief Minister at a time of great violence should come, but maybe it will come after the Supreme Court has completely exonerated him and accepted the SIT report, as some people expect. Maybe at that stage there will be a gesture. I'd like to draw one a point here. You know, when you ask people, will you vote for Modi in an election? Muslims, when you ask Muslims, will you vote for Modi in an election? Only 17% say they will, and 61% say no. When you ask them, will you vote for him if he apologizes? The people voting for him remain 17%, but the Muslims who say no comes down to 55%. Which means that if there is some sort of a gesture of reconciliation, the hostility to him may decline just a little bit. That will not translate into votes, but it may prevent a polarization of the community against him.
That's an important point you make, GVL Narasimha Rao. Why can't Modi say sorry? As an editor, if a story were to go wrong, regardless of whose fault it is, the editor goes and issues a public apology. Why is this issue of an apology such a matter of ego for Narendra Modi? Why doesn't he say sorry for what happened under his watch?
But on the other hand, I think it has become an issue of ego for the national media. I think it's the media which always makes this an issue. Media is after Mr. Modi, asking him to give an apology, and for what, I don't know.
No, hundreds of people died.
For?
An apology for what happened.
No,
we're not saying that Narendra Modi is personally responsible, but as the head of state, should he not say sorry?
No, he said no.
It might help, as Ashok Malik says, bring down the level of hostility.
No, but in fact, he has spoken on this issue. He has replied to the media. He said a mere apology, if he is really culpable, will a mere apology suffice? He said, you can go and hang me if I am wrong. But why do you need to get an apology just to only satisfy the ego of a section of the media?
Is it about the media and the fact that they are paying for Modi's apology and forcing him, as GVL suggests, Mr. Akbar?
It is, well, the media in that sense is only the voice of a certain sentiment.
Sure.
So, the media is also reflecting, yes, there is very obvious hostility towards Modi for precisely what happened, and his own characteristic of being a little aloof from media hasn't helped him with media. But that is his personality trait and his business. The issue here of an apology is, it has to be looked at it with some care. He's right that Modi has said that if I am guilty, hang me, which indeed he should be, because I mean, if you're culpable of such a crime, then there has to be some kind of a responsibility. You can't just get along by saying that, you know, you destroyed the credibility of a publication and they say, sorry, you can't go home.
Sure.
I mean, you know, there'll be accountability in many other matters. So he has a point there that that this is a hanging offense, that this is not an apology offense.
No. So, where I'm drawing a distinction, Mr. Akbar, is that if he's personally culpable, then of course he must hang. But he's also morally culpable for allowing these riots to take place under his watch, for not being able to step in faster.
But how do you say allowing? You think he was encouraging people to do it?
Not necessarily, but it happened under his watch.
No, but every other riot happens exactly in similar circumstances.
For which, Mr. Akbar,
which politician?
Leaders have apologized for what happened in 84.
Which Congress politician has ever resigned from a position of chief ministership because of riots? Are riots happening only for the first time in Gujarat? And the worst riots, much worse riots have happened in Gujarat at regular frequency for 50 years that Congress has been in rule. Okay. Has ever any chief minister resigned on this issue?
Under Solanki, and I covered them, under Solanki, riots were an epidemic actually.
Sure. Opinion is deeply divided on this issue. I want to come to the operative part of our opinion poll, the projections for the state of Gujarat in the assembly elections for 2011. Let's first take a look at the vote share. For 2007, the BJP picked up 49% of the votes. This time, ORG India Today is projecting that their vote share will slip by 2% to 47% of the vote. Let's take a look at the Congress, which picked up 38% of the votes in 2007, projected in 2012 to pick up 40% of the vote. That's a gain of 2. Whereas the new party that's been set up by Keshubhai Patel, obviously it didn't exist in the last elections, now expected to pick up 2% of the vote. That's the Gujarat Parivartan Party. Let's now take a look at the seat share, and this is most crucial because you've got the BJP, and these are figures for 2007, picking up 117 seats in the last elections. The Congress had 59, others had 6. Let's take a look at how the tally is being projected to change in 2012. The BJP tally going up by 11 seats to 128, the Congress tally coming down by 11 seats to 48, others picking up 5. The GPP projected to pick up only 1 seat, and that too if Keshubhai Patel fights the elections himself. I want to first go across to MJ Akbar on this apparent contradiction, the vote share slipping by 2%, however the seats rising by 11% for the BJP. What explains this, Mr. Akbar?
The greater polarization, that really is, that what has happened is that Narendra Modi hasn't really lost 2%. it has that 2% comes from Keshubai and so on and so forth within that factor. But the determination to put him over the hump is far greater among his voters than even what we saw last time around. And last time was a wave. So therefore, and number two, the Congress is suffering from a very bad run of bad news. And that bad news is actually dampened the enthusiasm of even the Congress voter who actually wants to go to the polls and so on. The corruption charges against the Congress. Now, we may think that the corruption charges is also against Gadkari and also against this and so on. But the truth is that irrespective of who is charged with what, the fact of the matter is that the government always suffers the maximum, because the government is the last establishment which has used power in order to become corrupt. So to that extent, corruption, and I think more important than corruption, is rising prices. Rising prices are really pulling down the Congress and de-energizing its vote base.
I want to bring in Sanjay Kumar, Headlines Today's cephalogist, on these numbers, because in the last opinion poll, which was a C voter opinion poll, the tally was actually coming down to about 114. Now, Professor Kumar, this tally rising to about 128. What would explain this on the ground? You've been going through the tables, looking at these numbers very carefully. What leads to this increase, given the fact that this is the third time Narendra Modi is fighting?
Rahul, we must remind our viewer that this is the poll conducted 2 months before elections, and the previous poll which we discussed about 15 days before, that was conducted 2.5 months before polls are likely to, before elections are to take place. Things keep changing. We still have 2 months for campaign. Candidates are yet to be announced. So these are several factors. Several factors come into play when candidates are announced, defections within the party, dissatisfaction of leaders. All these things keeps changing people's opinions, attitudes, and we don't see a big change. This is just 1 or 2% change in what we saw in the last poll and what we are looking at in this poll. So I don't see this as a huge shift. Small shifts take place, and it might take place in the coming months as well.
But this would allow, Ashok Malik, Narendra Modi the opportunity to beat his chest and say, despite facing a 3-time anti-incumbency, instead of my seat tally going down, I've been able to push it up. Would that serve as the springboard he's looking for to move from Ahmedabad to Delhi?
No, if I know Narendra Modi, he'll keep quiet and wait till 20th or if not 21st December. Because as Sanjay said, there are 2 months to go. Candidates have to be announced. There could still be sort of obstacles in front of him. But there's one point I'd like to make. If for roughly the same vote share, he's picking up about 10 or 11 more seats, to some degree that is also due to delimitation and the fact that urban seats number of urban seats have gone up in Gujarat as they have in other parts of the country. So this would imply that the BJP's wasted vote, as it's called, is probably lower than it was the last time, and in crude terms is getting more bang for the buck.
GVL Narasimha Rao, does this tie in with all the polls that you've been doing on the ground, or actually are you hopeful that it could go up? Yeah, of course it's for the BJP. Or are you hopeful that it could go up even further?
No, actually we are looking at even a better tally, but I think this itself is a hugely creditable performance after, like you said, after being Chief Minister for 11 years, and it's primarily a victory for the leadership of Mr. Narendra Modi. As Chief Minister, it's a huge approval of his incumbency, his term as Chief Minister, and the kind of positivity that exists on the ground today is completely, I think that has scared the Congress party. They have run away from the campaign literally.
You raise an important point. I must bring Ami Yagnik in on this. Mr. Yagnik, you know, Sonia Gandhi has been to Gujarat all of once. Rahul Gandhi hasn't been there even once. Digvijay Singh, Kapil Sibal, anybody else you name.
Also possibly taking the
they've been talking about wanting to go, but the Congress doesn't even seem to be in the elections. Your central leaders are so scared about polarizing this election in favor of Modi after the Maut Ka Saudagar fiasco of 2007 that nobody is even coming to help you out.
Sorry?
I'm saying that nobody in the Congress seems to have the courage to go and fight this election. They're sitting in Delhi, they've already accepted their defeat. They're not even on the ground.
That is not so. You heard Mrs. Gandhi at Rajkot and you saw the rally and you saw the people who came to hear her. And where is the question of bringing central leaders here when we have so much of local leadership here in Gujarat? And what is so great and scary about Mr. Modi that central leadership does not come here? That is what your observation says. But this is a state election and the state leaders here in Gujarat are doing their best, and we are very confident in the Congress that we are showing what the poor performance of 10 years of Modi's rule is in Gujarat. What is being shown is a complete eyewash, and we have been very successful and very confident in showing the people that what actually is happening at ground reality is not what is being shown on the television.
No, I'm not disputing that the local leaders, Mr. Yagnik, and this is for Achut Yagnik, are actually trying their best. But it's the central leadership which is not even fighting this battle. Rahul Gandhi toiled day and night in Uttar Pradesh. He hasn't been to Gujarat even once. He's going to Punjab, he's going to Kashmir, not where the war is being fought. It almost seems as if they're scared if they come to Gujarat, Narendra Modi will benefit even more, so they're not even bothering.
There is no question of benefiting or losing, but they'll come when the time will come.
After
it is very strange when you find it that every time Narendra Modi has to call his central leadership for even a small occasion of Sadbhavna, he flocks all the ministers from the central and calls them to the state to show that he has so much strength and he has to get the strength for the central people of his party. We do not need to do so.
Mr. Yagnik.
As far as as far as Gujarat is concerned, please let me tell you that this is too early to say about the outcome, because candidates are not selected, and those who understand Gujarat realize that we have a powerful local power structure. In every district, you find that powerful caste community combination, that dynamics also, and power structure. And the selection of candidate would decide that wind is blowing in which direction, number one. Number two, I would also like to add here that as far as Gujarat is concerned, the strategy of Congress is different. They are focusing more on the development at the grassroots level. And if you look at the grassroots level, development, the so-called development has not happened. If you look at the corruption, let me tell you that corruption is part of the system in Gujarat. Not today, since last many years. And so, I think the Congress leader in Gujarat, they have decided a different strategy. If you compare the election, the speech of Mr. Modi as well as Congress leader, you would realize that Mr. Modi is always emphasizing about the national leaders and national issues.
Okay, that's a very interesting.
The Congress leaders and the Congress leaders are only talking about Gujarat issues.
That's a very interesting point. I want to go across to Bakul Dholakia, who's joining us, former director of IIM Ahmedabad, because we're seeing Mr. Dholakia, very different approach. Narendra Modi only targets Sonia Gandhi or the Prime Minister. He doesn't even bother with the Gujarat Congress. For him, the leaders in the Gujarat Congress don't exist. Whereas the Gujarat Congress is only targeting local issues. Do you think this strategy is backfiring, which is what is coming out in the numbers that the India Today ORG poll is putting up?
I think after 10 years of being in power in Gujarat, the anti-incumbency is getting redefined in Gujarat. It is not really anti-incumbency, but it is pro-incumbency advantage that is showing up, because one is fighting on the basis of performance, and therefore the strategy to take issues to the next level and looking at it in the national context is perhaps more appealing to the people of Gujarat at this juncture than small issues of so that there are two different strategies. One is focus on grassroots level needs, whether basic needs are being met in every village. That is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is, are we fighting the election on broader issues, or we are fighting the election on nitty-gritties? Now, there is a sharp difference between the two parties as far as this approach is concerned, and your opinion poll shows that the broader issues probably are delivering better.
Okay, so now we've referred again and again to the national context. So let's shift our attention to what happens after these assembly elections if numbers turn out the way the India Today ORG poll is projecting. What does this mean for Narendra Modi's prime ministerial aspirations? Let's take that question. First up, would people want to see Narendra Modi as the next prime minister? This of course is restricted to our sample in Gujarat, where 56% say they want to see Narendra Modi as the next prime minister, 33% say no, can't say is about 11%. Let's come to the next question about who they think is the best amongst Rahul Gandhi, Narendra Modi and Nitish Kumar. Here are the figures. 56% say Narendra Modi, 35% say Rahul Gandhi, 2% say Nitish Kumar, 7% can't say. Narendra Modi leaps and bounds ahead of Rahul Gandhi. On the issue of whom people would like to see from the BJP as the next prime ministerial candidate, Narendra Modi again way ahead of Sushma Swaraj and Nitin Gadkari. This of course I reiterate are the figures from Gujarat, but Gadkari, Sushma nowhere in the fray, Mr. Jaitley nowhere in the fray. It's Narendra Modi all the way. And what happens, see there's Arun Jaitley at 3, none of the above is about 13, can't say at 16. Who people prefer from amongst the BJP leaders as the next prime minister. Let's put this to Mr. Akbar first. Very clearly, people in Gujarat want to see Narendra Modi move from Ahmedabad to Delhi. Will this poll and the numbers that we are projecting give him the sort of springboard to do so?
I found it very interesting because actually before the poll was taken, my own sense, and I was completely wrong, was that people, if they were happy with Narendra Modi in Gujarat, they would want him to keep on developing Gujarat. You know, why would they want to send a chap who had done so well for them away? And I mean, out of pure simple vested interest. But here we find something very interesting. More people would vote in Gujarat for Narendra Modi as Prime Minister than they would vote for him as Chief Minister.
Sure.
Because his Chief Minister's vote, I think, is 46% or 48%.
No, that is the party vote. I don't think we have put out a question on popularity of Chief Ministerial rating.
May I have the mild privilege of completing what I'm saying? All I'm suggesting is that he is more popular than in terms of getting him back. Look, you may call it party or not. The point is it's a highly personalized vote as well. I mean, there is Narendra Modi, the personality, who is attracting dramatic attention. So Narendra Modi as Chief Minister is getting 48% or something of the vote, but as Prime Minister, he is getting almost 8% higher, and Rahul Gandhi. The party, I mean, here the party comes in much more into play, because the Congress is delivering 40% in terms of support for in Gujarat, but when you say Rahul, it is slipping
35
to 35. So you can almost automatically see that there is this transference taking place, and I think that the Modi plank which will fashion, supposing it does happen, will be that Gujarat owes it to the motherland to do for India what we have done for Gujarat.
Absolutely, because Ashok Malik, Narendra Modi has been able to link it with Gujarati Asmita, the pride of Gujarat, and that's a constant factor in these elections, where he is now reaching out to people and saying that I represent Gujarati pride and therefore you must give me an opportunity to move to Delhi. And that seems to be working.
Well, it's not just his absolute and total identification with his state. He is Mr. Gujarat. That is certainly a positive factor. But look at it another way. 9 to 10% of Congress voters in Gujarat and probably sort of traditional Congress voters recognize that the present central government is not good enough and want a strong leader. In this case, they want Modi. Now, if 9% of Congress voters in Gujarat recognize that the central government is not working, which is what these numbers imply, can you imagine if this is translated across the country and this mood reflects somehow the anti-Congress mood in the rest of the country as well? These numbers will be very scary for the Congress, in my opinion.
You're saying the scary numbers for the Congress. I want to bring in Achut Yagnik, Mr. Yagnik, because Narendra Modi has linked this with Gujarati pride. And it is, as Mr. Akbar says, people want to give him that springboard. You know, people want to give him that opportunity to go from Ahmedabad to Delhi, which is why they believe that if they were to vote for him this time, they might have a Gujarati as the Prime Minister.
See, what has happened that Mr. Modi started with Hindutva and then started talking about great Gujarat, golden Gujarat, Swarnim Gujarat, and then as Vikas Purush. So he has combined these three elements, and that is why you find that Gujarati parochialism now has upper hand in Gujarat, which was not the scene earlier, because Gujaratis are always an open society right from thousands of years. But now you find this message
Okay.
of great Gujarat, Asmita of Gujarat has gone down.
And successfully, Ashok Malik and GVL both have the hands up.
Successfully.
You know, if I could just say
Ashok,
something
yes.
here, I think Mr. Yagnik is being extremely unfair. I travel to Gujarat a lot. He probably knows it better than I do, but I go there a lot. I have not detected any hostile feeling to outsiders in Gujarat while Modi has been around. He is certainly a state leader, a very strong state leader, but Gujarat remains a very open society and very welcoming of migrants from Odisha, from Bengal, from Andhra Pradesh, all sorts of, from Punjab, all sorts of people. There have been no riots against outsiders, there has been no xenophobia. So what is he talking about? What parochialism? Regional pride, certainly. But have taxi drivers from Bihar been beaten up in Gujarat?
Okay,
If you want to rubbish a man, don't just manufacture logic.
Why don't we give Achyut Yagnik a chance to respond to what Ashok Malik is saying?
I think because Gujarat is a prosperous state, so from number of state people are coming. But let me tell you that whether the people from Maharashtra in the sugarcane or Biharis or from Rajasthan, they are exploited heavily. And we have a mercantile ethos, we know that very well. But by and large, what I was suggesting, that we are an open society, we never talk about great Gujarat, or we never start our meeting as Jai Gujarat. We always say Jai Hind or Jai Bharat.
Okay.
Now what has happened, that during last 10 years, you find this great Gujarat.
GVL.
Yeah, 2 points here. One, I think quite often I find people saying Mr. Modi is a great image maker, he's an image builder, he knows how to project, and he connects at an emotional plane, therefore people vote for him. I think all this may be fine, but people don't support anybody repeatedly, election after election,
Okay.
if you haven't delivered on the ground. Whatever, every single vote he gets for the party is performance based. Nobody is voting for him because of any emotional appeal. That's point number one. Point number two, the point that Mr. Akbar raised, 47% for the BJP. You see, he's in the, if I remember from the last poll where I was also a panelist, Mr. Modi's personal preferential rating as a chief minister was 68%.
Okay,
compared
let's take
to,
some more questions.
Let's
take some more questions.
Appeal is
We'll
far in
continue our
excess of even the
discussion. I
party's
want to
appeal.
focus on, what people believe is Narendra Modi's biggest enemy. We put this question to our sample. We asked them, who do you think is the bigger enemy for Narendra Modi? Is it the Congress, Nitish Kumar, or his own party, the BJP? Very interesting answers. Let's take a look. The Congress they feel is 51%. Nitish Kumar they think is 14%. His own party, a bigger enemy than Nitish Kumar, at 18%. We'll discuss this. I want to take one or two more questions. The question about his biggest weakness, Narendra Modi, which trait of Narendra Modi do they think is his biggest weakness? Take a look at this. Arrogance, 30%, intolerance, 18%, disregard for institutions, 10%, others at 10%. Arrogance and intolerance together is about 50%. And I want to put that question to Mr. Akbar, where people realize, okay, he's done good work on the ground, but they think he's highly intolerant, he's very arrogant, and this in his own state, Mr. Akbar.
Yes, actually what is said about Modi in the ground is that he has far greater admiration than he has affection. In the sense, quite the opposite of Vajpayee, who really was, there was a lot of affection for Vajpayee, even among those who were not going to ever vote for BJP. So yes, that is a trait and a characteristic which, if he is honest, he'll have to correct. There is this, if you think of subconscious images that you think of Modi, hard, tough. Now let's take from his point of view, the country is actually searching for somebody hard and tough now, because the environment has become so affected by what might be called soft governance, or corruption and so on across everywhere, that everyone is looking. There are two personas of Indira Gandhi. One was the persona of Indira Gandhi as Amma, as mother. The poor really in 71 saw her as Amma. But in 1980, when she won the election, yes, that affection remained and existed, but it was because people wanted a tough government.
Sure.
After the Janata Party's 3 years or whatever,
so that becomes his USP.
That becomes your USP in a particular circumstances. However, in another circumstance, this might become.
That's a very interesting point. I want to bring Achyut Yagnik in on that. At a time when people believe that the government has been ineffectual, hasn't delivered governance reforms, the same qualities of Narendra Modi hold him in good stead, that he's considered a tough, able administrator, and arrogance and intolerance which should otherwise be completely unacceptable. Then people say, okay, let's keep this because the overall package is what we need.
But I think, the way people are talking about his arrogance, and even if you ask the people from the BJP, his own party, and if you look at the dissatisfied section of Sangh Parivar, you realize that what kind of persona he has, So that is he himself, the way he has projected himself over the years, and the way he has treated his own colleague and Sangh Parivar. Now that is why I think people feel that he is arrogant. And even if you ask the question, people may say that he is a megalomaniac also.
Ashok Malik, word from the RSS is that the Sarsang Chalak, and I happened to meet him, and he indicated the same thing, that as students, the principal believes that discipline must be maintained, that they always are in the Sangh, and that he must work with people from the Sangh at all times. That message is being communicated from Nagpur to Ahmedabad. Do you think it's registering?
When a politician, and we saw this with Vajpayee as well, and with Mr. Advani, of course, when they become mass politicians and acquire a certain appeal in electoral politics, in a sense they outgrow the club called the Sangh. And it's just like Jyoti Basu outgrew that smoke-filled room in which the CPM took decisions. Mr. Modi has also outgrown the Sangh in many respects. He's still a member of the Sangh, he still has a relationship with the Sangh, but he has an independent appeal, identity, personality which is out of the Sangh, which is different from the Sangh. And sometimes I think the Sangh finds it difficult to reconcile itself to that. And that does seem to be a problem between the Sangh and the so-called mass-based leaders the BJP sometimes throws up.
So will Mr. Akbar, the Sangh, continue to back Narendra Modi, tolerate him because he could energize the right-wing Hindutva voter, or will they be very suspicious and get in someone more pliable?
Depends on whether they are wise or not. Depends on whether they want to win an election or not. I mean, if they don't want to win an election and remain the club that Ashok was talking about, very good. I mean, that's their fate. But if they want to grow, it happens with all ideological kernels. This is an ideological kernel.
Okay, I need to slip.
You have to become a tree. You can't remain a small fruit.
It's a little being unfair to the Sangh, because they have allowed Mr. Modi actually originally belongs to the Sangh, and he met the Sangh leadership only last Sunday. So I think sometimes I think it's an over-analysis that he is certainly very much a part of the Sangh original Parivar, and there is tremendous amount of respect for him.
Let's take a look at the methodology. We covered 36 constituencies. The sample of voters was 5,040. Let's take a look first at the dates, which is between the 12th to the 18th of October. The margin of error is about 3%. Let's take a look at the first section of graphics, which has to deal with Operation Sadbhavna that Narendra Modi launched with a lot of fanfare in Gujarat, and the sort of response that it has got. Will Sadbhavna help Modi get minority votes? 41% say yes. This is the entire sample. 40% say no. Can't say is about 19%. Let's take the next question. These are questions now that are only being asked to people from the minority community. Has Narendra Modi been fair to the Muslim community in the last 5 years? 26% say yes. No is about 54%. Can't say is about 20%. Clearly, suspicion still runs high amongst the Muslims. Let's take our next graphic on whether Modi's done enough to help the Muslim community of Gujarat. 60% say no, only 16% are saying yes. Can't say is about 25%. Who would people vote for if elections were held today? 61% of the Muslim voters are saying they will not vote for Narendra Modi if elections are held today. Only 17% saying they would. It's very interesting how the Muslim community still remains skeptical, and even if you look at the question of the apology, 55% saying they will not vote for Narendra Modi even if he were to apologize for the Gujarat riots. I want to put the first question to Ashok Malik on the level of suspicion and the issue of Operation Sadbhavna. Clearly not cutting much ice for Narendra Modi. He tried to reach out to the minority community. They still remain very, very suspicious of the Chief Minister.
Well, there's certainly a problem Mr. Modi does have with the Muslim voter in Gujarat and perhaps elsewhere in India as well. But what is interesting from the various sets of numbers we've already sort of announced in this program vis-a-vis the Muslim voter is that the hostility to Modi is gradually, slowly coming down. Because if you look at the number of Muslims who are willing to vote for Mr. Modi, it's 17% irrespective of whether he issues an apology or a gesture of reconciliation or not. But the number of people who sort of would certainly think of voting for him or move to the can't say range goes up by about 6% in case he issues an apology or makes a gesture of reconciliation. So which means there is some rethinking even within the Muslim community to a very small degree about how fair this man has been as a chief minister. Because 1 in 4 Muslim voters in Gujarat says that for the past 5 years he's done a good job as chief minister. He's been fair to us. That is not translating into votes yet, but it is to some degree blunting the hostility to him.
You're suggesting that the numbers indicate that the level of hostility is coming down. Mr. Akbar, do you share that perception?
Yes, indeed, it's coming down. As I said, this would have been more apparent if we had looked at Muslim intentions and so on, particularly the can't say. The can't say is the grey area where people haven't really made up their minds. It's 28%, which is quite significant. But compare these figures to last time around, and last time around I think the hostility to Modi was much sharper. However, the fact is that one of the sort of disincentives to apologize is probably the fact that even if he does, the majority of Muslim voters will not vote for him. So what would he apologize for in political terms? On moral terms, yes, of course, we can see the rationale. But I think in the larger, my problem has always been, or my understanding has always been, that voting intentions, figures and the actual vote are less important for anyone in Modi's position than the ability to govern. And can you govern a state or a country with a large segment of your population so completely hostile?
That's a very important
So
point.
therefore, it is important in the larger sort of rationale of governance that Narendra Modi begins to reach out and say, yes, he is the chief minister of all Gujaratis, not of only a majority of Gujaratis.
Achyut Yagnik, Mr. Akbar and Ashok Malik suggesting that while the Muslims might not vote for Narendra Modi just yet, Sadbhavna has served the purpose of lowering the level of hostility. Would you agree?
No, it's difficult to say. Those people who say can't say, you are interpreting that they are still undecided, but you can also interpret that answer as a sense of resignation also. So because of divided society in Gujarat and growing ghettos, there is a increasing sense of resignation. Beyond a point, it is possible that those people even may not go for voting also. So I don't think meeting with the people or meeting with the Muslim community, not only in Ahmedabad but in many parts of Gujarat, I don't get that sense.
Bakul Dholakia, do you think that Mission Sadbhavna has made any difference on the ground? The numbers still seem to be stacked against Narendra Modi. The Muslim community very, very suspicious even now.
I think, as it was pointed out, the correct frame of reference is what would this kind of opinion of the minority community would have meant in 2002, 2007 versus 2012. And what I could gather from the numbers that you have given and whatever I remember of the similar things in the past is that the anti-Modi bias amongst the minority community seems to be on decline. And that is the reason why the grey area percentage is rising.
Okay, we've discussed.
Now you require more conviction. You require more conviction on their part. Now, the other thing that we need to understand is that X number of percent, 60% of them saying we will not vote for Modi. Are they therefore saying that they will vote at all? I mean, it is not clear whether not voting for Modi means electoral gains for someone else. So therefore, I think it has always been very difficult to assess the mind of the minority community.
Okay, you know,
it is
GVL,
the case every time in every election.
GVL, the question of how minorities perceive Modi is important, especially in the national context. Even in his own state, he hasn't been able to convince the minority community, let alone a state like Uttar Pradesh or Bihar, where opinion about Modi is far more negative than it would be in, you know, just by common understanding.
No, I don't think that's right. But you see, there is a paradigm shift in the way he's approaching politics compared to the way electorate is used to hearing from political parties. He says, for me, I think this question is redundant for him. Has he done something for the Muslims in Gujarat? He said this in his Sadbhavana mission speech. He very categorically says, for me, I am governing 6 crore Gujaratis, and Muslims are a significant or an important part of it. But I have nothing special to give to the Muslims of Gujarat. So rest of the country, all the other political parties have been working on this kind of feeding this kind of beliefs to the community and telling them we are doing something special for you, when indeed they have done nothing for them. The status of Muslims according to the Sachar committee is much better in Gujarat compared to every other state governed by the Congress and the left parties. And more importantly, I would like to ask you a counter question. Have you asked the Congress party or the BJP why they are not getting a significant chunk of Dalit votes in Uttar Pradesh? Why do you have this special focus on one particular community in a state? And I have not been able to find an answer to this question. I would like to have somebody speak on this. Why do you not ask?
You know, we've discussed the minority factor. I now want to shift our attention to the Keshubhai Patel factor and see whether his presence makes a difference at all in the polls. Let's take the first question that we put about Keshubhai Patel. This is the question is being asked only now to the Lewa and the Kadwa Patels. This is the community from which Mr. Keshubhai Patel comes. The question was, would you vote for Modi if elections were to be held today? 72% of those who are actually from Keshubhai Patel's community say they would vote for Modi despite Keshubhai Patel splitting. 25% say no. Let's take the next question. This has got to do with whether they believe that Modi is being fair, because Keshubhai Patel trying to create this feeling that Narendra Modi hasn't been fair. Even there, 62% feel he's been fair. And on the issue of whether they would vote for Keshubhai Patel, 77% say no, they will not vote for Keshubhai Patel. Let me bring in Professor Sanjay Kumar. Professor Kumar, it's very clear that Keshubhai Patel is a bit of a non-starter in these elections. You know, he's launched his own party, but it seems to be completely failing. Why is he not being able to rally the Patel vote?
This is not only unique about Gujarat. A new party has come up, and as the survey indicates that they are likely to get about 2% vote. If we travel from one state to another, we would see that a new party which comes up in an election, while we think that they are going to do some magic in the election, but they have never done that big a magic, and that is likely to happen in Gujarat also. Keshubhai Patel is no match if we see Keshubhai Patel versus Narendra Modi in terms of personality. A ruling party always has the advantage. Now we have, as mentioned earlier, the anti-incumbency is being seen as pro-incumbency now, not only in Gujarat, but look at travel to different states, whether it is Madhya Pradesh, whether it is Chhattisgarh, Bihar, many states. The incumbent government, which is doing some developmental work, are getting re-elected more and more. All this has places BJP and Narendra Modi as in an advantageous position, and Keshubhai Patel is no match for that. They don't see Keshubhai Patel in any way matching Narendra Modi's charisma, political stature, the BJP strength. So very, very difficult for a person to vote for Keshubhai Patel. And remember, Rahul, no voter in India like to waste his vote. Nobody would like to vote for a ruling party.
Nobody wants to waste his vote, especially at a time when Keshubhai Patel is seen as a man with no future. And if he'd done this earlier, maybe he would have had a chance. In this election, it's a non-starter.
Even if he had done this earlier, he wouldn't have had a chance. Because one of the things that development does is that it breaks the traditional patterns of support. People weigh, it was traditional, I think we mentioned it at some point in this discussion, that it was traditional that, development was not a factor previously. Now, there were two reasons for that. One, that there wasn't much development to begin with. And number two, the traditional loyalties to caste and so on were very strong, particularly in those areas where development hadn't taken place. As Gujarat develops, people have to make a choice, which is, do you want to support your kith and kin to the extent that you will remain hungry or you may remain underfed, or do you want to go with growth? Common sense. It doesn't require genius to say that we would like to go with growth. One of the important facts of Indian history is that in the last 20 years, since 1990, since the Babri Masjid riots, there has been no major riot. Even the Gujarat riot was an extension in a way of the Babri Masjid affair. Why is that? Is it that Indians have suddenly become angels? No. It is because people are recognizing that the old systems of conflict generation, which generated conflict, have to be put aside. Otherwise, India and their welfare will be hurt. So, Keshubhai Patel, who would have been a major factor in the 70s, he is a 70s man. He is not a 21st century politician. If he thinks that because his name is Patel, he will get Patel votes. He will get votes for the same reason that non-Patels would have given him votes for or denied.
That's a big disappointment, Achyut Yagnik, for Keshubhai Patel, because he was playing on the emotional card, building this hypothesis that the Patels have suffered under Narendra Modi. The opinion poll indicates that people don't share that perception.
To begin with, let me tell you that Patels, as a community, they are known as Patidar. Patel is a surname. They are only 14%, number one. Number two, they are not only divided as Lewa and Kadwa, that is higher and lower, but also divided according to marriage circle. And Keshubhai's own area of influence is limited to Saurashtra and some part of Surat city. So his area of influence is limited. So one should not expect more than that from Keshubhai. There's nothing to do, but I should also add that Patel as a Patidar as a community is a very clannish community. And they vote for not according to the community, but according to their marriage circle, that certain villages, 6 villages, 20 villages, 16 villages, So that kind of, at the grassroots level, that kind of contest take place.
Okay, so we've discussed the minority factor, we've discussed Keshubhai Patel being a non-starter. Let's now come to the issue of development. And I also want to bring in Mahesh Jetmalani from the BJP, who's joining us on this broadcast. Let's take a look at some of the questions that we posed to our sample on Narendra Modi and the sort of work that he'd done on the issue of development. The first question had to do with what people believe would be the most important factor in these assembly elections. 37% say development, 28% say price rise, 18% say corruption. Has industrialization in Gujarat really created jobs? Do people believe the Modi story? 67% of those who were sampled say that yes, industrialization has led to the creation of jobs. 18% say no, 7% say there has been no industrialization. Let's take the next question on what people believe is Narendra Modi's greatest weakness. 30% say arrogance, intolerance is 18%, disregard for institutions is 10%, can't say is about 32%. Let's take a look at his strengths also. People say he's not corrupt, that's 32%, organized leadership is about 26%, charismatic is 25%. I want to go across now first to Mahesh Jethmalani on Narendra Modi's biggest strengths, where 48% say he's arrogant and intolerant. And even in Gujarat, where you'd assume that Narendra Modi would otherwise have very good ratings, these are two factors that don't go down well, Mr. Jethmalani, with voters in Gujarat who would like him to remedy these characteristics. Mr. Jethmalani.
Well, I don't know, because on the other hand, he scores very highly on charisma. So these are opinions, and for ultimately Rahul, these are imponderables. These are amorphous findings. One really doesn't know. People say them off the cuff. But frankly speaking, the fact of the matter is that a agenda based on development and Modi's charisma are the two biggest factors that are showing the most important aspect of your polls, and that is 128 odd seats up from last time. So I don't subscribe to the view that Mr. Modi is arrogant, or yes, he is very determined, and he has his own agenda, which is to put Gujarat and India on the world map, and I have no doubt that he will do it in the manner he is doing right now.
Mr. Yagnik, looking at Narendra Modi's weaknesses, do you think these could hold him back, especially at a time when he needs to look beyond a state like Gujarat? To run Gujarat is one thing. Looking beyond Gujarat, could these factors really trip him over in his ability to manage a coalition?
There are two aspects. As far as Gujarat is concerned, let me tell you that the leader of Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, BKS, they told that we have problem about the Sheel and Shaili. That means the style and the integrity of Mr. Modi. So I am talking about how a Sangh Parivar leader now perceive Mr. Modi. As far as Gujarat and India is concerned, I should also tell my friends that you cannot compare Gujarati middle class with the Indian middle class. The sensibility of Gujarati middle class and Indian middle class, the perspective also are two different things.
That's an important factor. I want to bring in Renuka Chaudhary from the Congress party. She's joining us on this broadcast. And ma'am, one question that everybody is asking from the Congress party is, where is the Congress in Gujarat? If you see, apart from the one trip from by Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi hasn't been there, Digvijay Singh hasn't been there, Kapil Sibal hasn't been there. It almost seems as if the Congress is reconciled to its fate in Gujarat. Why is the Congress not fighting this election as you did in Uttar Pradesh and elsewhere?
I don't think you're correct, Rahul. We may not be in your face as you see it, but at the grassroots level, quietly our workers are at the job. And I think you're going to see surprising dents in what is going to happen.
But is this a conscious strategy, to try and avoid taking Narendra Modi head on? We saw what happened after the Maut Ka Saudagar comments of 2007, because in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, we saw Rahul Gandhi himself, Mrs. Gandhi, the Prime Minister, lead a high voltage campaign. Over here, the sense seems to be that they don't want to target Narendra Modi because of fear of polarizing his voters.
Look, Rahul, part of it will be political strategy, but the fact of the matter is that we don't want to give him importance by speaking about him. We are appealing to the voters, who I feel are far more discerning, and we are there on the ground, hands-on, and they're seeing that happen. And I think that's why Mr. Modi was also worried.
Mr. Akbar, how do you view the Congress strategy of not targeting Narendra Modi? They've learned their lesson from 2007, but is this the right strategy according to you if they had to take on someone as powerful as Modi in Gujarat?
There is a collateral damage to defeat, which Rahul Gandhi experienced in Uttar Pradesh. And as you can see, that collateral damage is very, very severe, because it affects credibility. It affects your people's ability to treat you as a leader and so on. Rahul Gandhi has to recover really from UP and slowly re-establish himself in one way or the other. And
so you're suggesting that because of what happened in UP, he's worried it would happen in Gujarat?
Yes, the Congress party is very sensible to protect the person who is going to lead it in the next general election.
Let me ask that question to Renuka Chaudhary. Ma'am,
You're just a token of what they're doing for.
Ma'am, is it because of what happened in UP that you've now decided that it's not good to launch Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi in Gujarat because you're certain you might lose?
No, not at all. No. Oh, that is so ridiculous. You can't prejudge what we are doing. That we are a political party, and a one-size-fits-all approach never works. So we have different strategies for different areas, and then we are going ahead with it. Tell them not to worry about us. They should worry about themselves, because if you go to see it, it's not like Mr. Modi can take the credit for everything. It's because he was there that a lot more progress and development that should have happened didn't come, because Mr. Modi was viewed as a communal point, and that he was viewed as anti-minorities. He's still got the Godhra stain on his face. And he needs the applause of UK and other countries to for his own credibility.
Okay, Ram Jethmalani wants to respond to what you're saying, Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani. Mr. Jethmalani wants to respond.
Should be given to them.
I also need to take a quick break, Mr. Jethmalani.
Just one point I want, the Congress keeps on with the same argument all the time, and Renuka has repeated it. But I just want to point out on the minority issue, one of the most important Congress leaders, Asifa Khan, who was handpicked by Ahmed Patel, has only recently crossed over and joined the BJP and Mr. Modi. And she says Modi is good for Gujarat, and that's why she has joined him. So I hope Renuka Chaudhary has taken note of that. Handpicked Congress spokesperson now joins the BJP.
Person. Mahesh, you should fight an election. You should fight an election, because if you think one person who crosses over for obvious personal gain is going to give you the credibility, then please be happy. Please be happy, because that's all it takes. That's all it takes for you.
Unlike you, I have.
I want to come to the operative end of this opinion poll now. Let's take a look at what the vote and the seat projections for 2012 are looking like. We'll begin with the question on vote share. In 2007, the BJP picked up 49% of the vote. Their vote share is projected to fall by 2%, coming down to about 47. Let's take a look at the Congress, which picked up 38% of the vote in 2007. Projection for 2012 is that this will rise to about 40%. Then there is Keshubai Patel's party, which didn't exist in the last elections, now projected to pick up 2% of the vote. That's not substantial at all. Let's take a look at what this means for seats. This is the way the 2007 figures look like. The BJP had 117, the Congress had 59, others had 6. Let's take a look at the ORG projections for 2012. The BJP tally projected to go up by 11 seats to 128. The Congress tally projected to come down by 11 seats to 48. Others at 5. Keshubai Patel's party at 1. That too only if Keshubai Patel were to fight the elections himself. I want to bring Professor Sanjay Kumar in on this apparent contradiction between the vote share and the seats, where the BJP's vote share is actually coming down, but their seats are going up by 11. How do you analyze that?
This is not surprising, Rahul, in first past the post system, the electoral system which we have in the country. Remember election in Karnataka, where BJP has less vote than the Congress, but they have more seats than the Congress in the present assembly. So what is happening in Gujarat right now, even if BJP is losing 2 points, Congress is gaining 2 points in terms of vote share, but it might happen, and which is what our poll shows, that BJP might gain 11 seats and Congress might lose 11 seats, because BJP is not wasting its vote. Votes are spread and they are picking up, which is called, what we call vote seat relationship. The vote seat relationship of BJP is more positive compared to what is happening with Congress. Congress is getting bigger victories in some constituency, so they are losing votes. So even if they are increasing 2% votes, they are not
BJP is getting more bang for its vote, as Ashok said. But 128 seems to indicate that 3 terms of so-called anti-incumbency has made no difference to Narendra Modi. And that's quite a creditable achievement, given how high expectations are in our states nowadays.
One of the numbers which astounded me was 67% of the people saying that the present process of industrialization and the present economic policies by implication are good for Gujarat and are creating jobs. If 67% of the people are generally optimistic or satisfied, that is actually huge. I'd say it's almost an aberration in India. It's huge, and that would be reflected in Mr. Modi facing no
So
challenge.
at some level, Mrs. Chaudhary, it would seem that there's not just rhetoric when it comes to development. A large number of people in Gujarat, in fact 2/3, are actually happy and satisfied with the work that Narendra Modi has done on the ground, which is completely counter to Congress claims.
First of all, we are not new to three-time winning against anti-incumbency. As you know, Delhi, and as you know, Assam, our chief ministers have done these hat-tricks many times over, so that doesn't matter. Now, as for Modi's image, I will still say, Rahul, that you guys are slightly off the mark and you're going to see sudden dips where you think it's the most comfortable.
You're still hoping that there could be dips. I want to bring in GVL Narasimha Rao, because to be able to increase your tally after 3 terms, you know, is not something which happens very often, and Narendra Modi on the ground seems to be very well accepted.
No, I think as Ms. Malik said, Ashok Malik said, there is a general complete approval of the governance of Gujarat, the stewardship of Gujarat by Mr. Modi over the past 5 years, and the kind of industrialization that has happened, the kind of growth that their people have seen, and also the kind of facilities for farmers. If any one section of the electorate had been aggrieved, as the Congress party tries to portray most of the time, the results would have been completely different. To be able to hold on to your vote base from a time when there was a wave and continuously win elections year after year. If you look at the elections that were held last year before last year, repeatedly BJP has been posting victories.
Okay.
And this victory will in a way, I think the Congress party does not want Mr. Modi to get a much higher pedestal for this. Therefore, they think they can take away the significance of this victory by not being in the field and fighting elections. It's excellent. I think if your rival doesn't want him in contest seriously because they don't want the winner to claim victory, I think it's all
because Mr.
it's all
Yagnik
very
has
well
been
for BJP.
arguing that under Narendra Modi there's a lot of corruption, that there is a lot of growth which is happening because of the big base in Gujarat, which has nothing to do really with Narendra Modi. Anybody else in his position would have also delivered the same figures. If your hypothesis was correct, Mr. Yagnik, then the level of dissatisfaction would have been much higher. Clearly, what you're saying is not borne out by the numbers.
I think we have 2 months. Let me tell you that 2 months to go, and many things will happen after the selection of candidate. But I should also tell that, we cannot predict on the base of a very limited sample. And only certain constituencies, as you told earlier, and that constituencies are not even 1/3 of the total Gujarat.
Sure.
So if you look at the Human Development Index, one can realize that people are not satisfied.
Okay, let's now shift our attention to the big question of what happens after the assembly elections, because Narendra Modi is hoping to use these elections as a springboard from Ahmedabad to Delhi. Let's take a look at what people say about Narendra Modi's prime ministerial ambitions and whether they are prepared to back them. These are the results of the question we asked. Who do you want as the next prime minister? In Gujarat, Narendra Modi is the choice of 56% of the people. Rahul Gandhi comes second at 35%. Nitish Kumar way behind at 2%. Kanse is about 7%. Let's take the next question. Now, would you want to see Narendra Modi as the next prime minister? In Gujarat, 56% say yes, 33% say no. Kanse is about 11%. Amongst the BJP leaders, who do you want as your next prime minister? Here, if you look at Sushma Swaraj, Nitin Gadkari, they are miles behind Narendra Modi, who's at about 56%. There's also Arun Jaitley, who's really bottom of the pack, not looking good for any of the other leaders. The Gujarat strongman has immense popularity in Gujarat. I want to put this question first to Ashok Malik on whether the results of the opinion poll, if that's what reality turns out to be, would that serve as the springboard that Narendra Modi is hoping for?
Let's first reconcile ourselves to the fact that we are discussing only Gujarat.
Sure.
Now, in any state, the chief minister has a natural advantage over all other politicians because he's best known. Especially in the case of Mr. Modi, because he is a popular chief minister and not just an ordinary chief minister. So, obviously, Gujarat would like to see Mr. Modi go on to do better things. He's done a good job in Gujarat. They want him to do better things. The interesting number here is that 10% of people, 9% actually, who are saying they will vote for the Congress in the assembly election would actually prefer Mr. Modi as Prime Minister. That would indicate, to me at least, that they are about 10% Congress voters who are dissatisfied with the performance of the union government and want an alternative.
Okay.
It could be Mr. Modi, it could be somebody else, but they want an alternative. If this is the mood across the country, and if we sort of, I'm only speculating here, I must admit, if this is the mood across the country and if Congress voters of this magnitude across the country are dissatisfied with the union government, then I'm afraid it's something very worrying for the Congress party.
Okay, you're saying there's reason for worry, but Mrs. Chaudhary, the one reason for some, the one reason that the Congress will have some takeaway from this poll is the fact that Muslims still remain very, very suspicious. Even in Gujarat, despite Mission Sadbhavna, Muslims very, very wary of Narendra Modi. So is the Congress really hoping that if he were to move from Ahmedabad to Delhi, there would be a reverse polarization, that Muslims would be a vote block that you would have as yours for the taking for 2014, especially if you were up against Narendra Modi?
Rahul, first of all, like we said, the perspective that you're talking about is really local to Gujarat. Number one. Number two, the Muslims have been against Narendra Modi, and this has been snapping at his heels. Every time he gets up and puffs his chest and thinks he's going to do the crossover, this is snapping at his heels, because that is the reality. That is the reality. And the Satbhavna, I'm afraid, was self-explanatory when he refused to even accept the Muslim cap, the skull cap on his head, even as a gesture. Even as a gesture. So his mindset was loud and clear all over the national media. And I think it's very, very insulting to believe that the Muslims just before an election are going to suddenly listen to his platitudes and that they are going to reverse their opinion. At the end of the day, Rahul, Mr. Modi has failed to convince the minority voter. He has failed to deliver on that front. And I'm afraid that quantum leap that he thinks he's going to take, this is not going to help him. It's going to hold him back, because that is the reality. India does not tolerate communal concepts.
Let Mr. Jethmalani respond to that India is not Gujarat.
Inherently and intrinsically.
That you can win in Gujarat, but given the sort of reverse polarization that might happen, Narendra Modi would never be able to make it to Delhi. That's what the Congress is hoping for, Mr. Jethmalani.
Well, to take Gujarat first, Rahul, I think that the increase in number that you're seeing, and I think that it will be more than 128, contrary to what Renuka optimistically hopes. I think part of the reason is the success of Mr. Modi's Sadbhavna rally. I think there is a shift. I think the Muslim community has got justice, of course, largely to the Supreme Court in the 2002 riot cases. And I think Muslims themselves now are tiring of the same Congress theme song about 2002. They have seen the results of development. They are sharing it. They are sharing it in Gujarat.
Right.
If you go to Alpha One of the most prominent malls in Ahmedabad, you will see that a lot of the shops there are owned by the Muslim community, and those are branded shops. So Muslims are now getting prosperity. They're seeing that instead of divisive agendas which the Congress keeps promoting, it is better to go for a leader who has a track record on development. It is only development that's going to unite all the countries, all the communities in this country, not the Congress. If anybody is snapping at the heels of Mr. Modi, it is not the Muslims of this country, it is the Congress party.
But Mr. Yagnik has been saying that it's the rich Muslims who might still be open to the idea of accepting Mr. Modi, but the poor Muslims feel to be completely disenfranchised. Mr. Yagnik, is that not correct?
Yes, because even in Sadbhavna, during that Sadbhavna period, You can see that only mercantile Muslim community people were there, you know. You also find fisher folk Muslim, you also find pastoralist Muslim, you also find artisan Muslim, you know, and they are not with either BJP or with Modi.
Bakul Dholakia, what's your sense of the situation on the ground? Do you think that it's only the richer Muslims who are, buying into the Gujarat growth story because they are benefiting from it themselves? They are the ones who are likely to be weaned away by Modi. The poorer Muslim still doesn't feel connected to the Chief Minister.
Well, I don't think that there is any authentic information about the opinions of these people by income strata. Now, one thing is very clear, that the business-oriented component within the minority community has seen the fruits of development in the last 10 years and have realized how their purchasing power and living standards have increased in the last 10 years is for them to see. And as a result, at least the negativity in their mind is likely to have reduced significantly over the last 10 years. What is important is that end of the day, the trickle down effect to the poorer sections of the society within the minority might still be happening, and therefore the religious sentiments, the experiences of what happened 10 years ago would probably carry some weight in their minds as compared to the improvement in the living standards that might have happened over the last 10 years.
Okay.
But in the minority community, the negativity has reduced. Now, whether that reduced negativity brings in votes is something that remains to be seen. And if your opinion polls are to be an indicator, it means that a declining vote share with changed composition of the voting pattern could explain the increased number of seats in spite of an overall decline in the vote share.
Ashok Malik, the Congress's theory is that Narendra Modi is the best dose of anti-incumbency. To counter anti-incumbency, they can't hope for anything better than Narendra Modi, because the entire Muslim population will then unite, try and ensure that Narendra Modi doesn't become Prime Minister. To what extent do you think this theory might
work? Two things to say, one about Gujarat, one nationally. I find this illusion that Muslims are somehow sort of purchasable commodities and are selling, and mercantilist Muslims or rich Muslims are selling themselves to Narendra Modi, very disturbing and demeaning. If I am a rich Muslim or a mercantilist Muslim or whatever, and I feel Modi hates me and wants to sort of destroy my community, I will not vote for him even if he offers me money. And on the other hand, if Muslims are purchasable, then frankly Modi could have conceivably bought even poor Muslim votes. He has not succeeded in doing that. So let's not demean our fellow citizens, whether Hindu or Muslim. Coming to the national picture, Mr. Modi certainly has an image problem with Muslims, and I would say with sections of Hindus as well, okay, which he has to address. Gujarat is not India, I recognize that. You won't get 67% approval for industrialization in India. You will get it in Gujarat. Any leader in this country, anyone who aspires to be a leader in this country, has to be a coalition builder. Not just party coalitions, but also social coalitions. Mr. Modi has to work on that. He's an astute politician. How he does it is his business. But
and
it is
so far, GVL, from what we've seen, he doesn't demonstrate the ability to work on these social coalitions. He's arrogant, he's intolerant according to the results of this poll, and he always wants to have his own way, which he can have in Gujarat, but not when he needs to work with the likes of the TDP, the JDU, the BJD. This sort of arrogance and intolerance won't succeed. He has to be more affable.
I think there is a serious problem with the way the entire political class approaches elections and the way Mr. Modi approaches elections.
Okay.
This is a fundamental difference. And in the last 1.5 hours, we have discussed half an hour about the Muslim factor in Gujarat elections. This is exactly the way it happens on every television channel. I'm not pointing it out for you. So the fixation about Muslim vote, the kind of obsession with that factor is what is how this politics in the last 50-60 years has been run. Mr. Modi believes there cannot be anything for the development of one community vis-a-vis the other. So he wants to treat all communities on the equal platform, and he has demonstrated how Muslims can benefit from from the fruits of development in Gujarat, which they haven't got from any other state, which has fed on a lot of this.
Let me bring
Muslim,
in a number cruncher, Sanjay Kumar. Do you think
do they want development, or do they want simply appeasement?
In Gujarat, we've seen the Muslims are still very suspicious. All India, the levels of suspicion could be higher, could be lower. We don't know, but there is suspicion. Can he pull this off without Muslim votes?
Certainly, Rahul, because we know that Muslims are only 9% of the total voters in Gujarat. And what is new about Modi not getting large proportions of Muslim vote? In any state,
talking about the all India picture.
Yeah, in any state, whether it is Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Delhi, wherever there is a bipolar contest between Congress and BJP, it's the Congress who gets large proportions of Muslim vote. The worry for the Congress about Muslim vote is in those states where Congress is in contest with the regional parties, whether it is UP, Bihar, West Bengal or any other state. Congress is losing large proportions of Muslim vote wherever they are in contest with the regional parties. So regional parties have eaten up the Muslim vote of Congress. Wherever Congress and BJP are face to face, any state, 70-80% of Muslims vote for Congress.
So you're making the case that if all the Hindu votes were to come together, or a large part of the Hindu votes were to come together for Narendra Modi, the BJP can do even without the Muslim votes. Mrs. Chaudhary, how do you respond to Professor Sanjay Kumar's analysis that even if the Muslims decide not to vote for Narendra Modi, he is still the BJP's best shot?
Well, considering it's the BJP, good luck to them. And let's see how well they can pull that off amongst themselves. I'm least interested in who the BJP thinks what they have to think. But I personally believe that Mr. Modi has a long way to go. And all this kind of thing is not going to help him. All this kind of feedback that is being given on channels, it's good, let it carry on, because I think that's the way it should be.
Mr. Jethmalani, when people were being asked about Narendra Modi's biggest weakness, they said, his biggest opponents and his biggest threat lie within the BJP. That it's the gang in Delhi which for their own interest will try and find some way of tripping Narendra Modi's prime ministerial aspirations. Do you think he'll be able to take everybody along if he's given the opportunity?
He doesn't.
Yes, I think he certainly can. I don't think that what you call his inflexibility and his arrogance are serious issues. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know how people perceive that. But yes, I mean, maybe it's a propaganda tactic of his opponents within and outside the party to paint him as such. But the fact of the matter is, your own polls have shown that the most popular national leader by far is Mr. Narendra Modi. Both within the BJP and within the Congress, everybody else is streets behind. You have to accept it whether you like it or not, that Mr. Narendra Modi will move to the center, whether he's Prime Minister, it's for his own destiny and this country's destiny.
Well, this is just an opinion poll. Things can still change between now and voting day. Very quickly, Professor Kumar, how much do you see the situation change between now and voting day?
Even in this poll, Rahul, we have estimated that there is a margin of 3%.
Correct.
We know that it's still almost 2 months before the first vote will be casted. There would be changes, but I don't see change in the election results. Election results are almost a foregone conclusion. We know that, at least from the polls, various polls suggest that it's
election results, you're saying, are a foregone conclusion. The critical question, of course, is what happens thereafter. It's one of the most exciting political stories, no matter which way you look at it. To all my guests, Mrs. Renuka Chaudhary, Mahesh Jethmalani, Achyut Yagnik, Bakul Dholakia, Ashok Malik, GVL Narasimha Rao and Professor Sanjay Kumar for joining us on this special panel. Thank you very much.